And then this is when we finally cut to the party, which is held at Ducale Palace. This is when everyone's showing up. We get a little conversation between Grace and Gabriel, and he's doing his whole rundown of I know everything. This and that, like very, like I said, very religious zealot is how he's playing it.
Yeah.
And we also get Alana showing up, and we find out that she's actually the one that hired Grace. And she's like, "Oh, I handpicked you." And from there, this is when they all congregate upstairs and they have the meeting, and it's basically like a back and forth of trying to convince Alana, what to do with the key, who to give it to. And this is when I didn't really write too much about this, but I did bring it up. Like I said, the whole martyr biblical religious zealot thing is so over the top, and it's too late for this. Too late for this in the entries. Like way too late to have something like that. It's very hammy. It's very James Bond. Like this is a Bond villain. This is a
Yeah.
Bond villain first and foremost. Ethan has a really ridiculous line um when Gabriel's getting ready to leave and they're holding him because Alana decides, more or less like I'm getting on the train because she has a meeting on the train to give the key away, but Gabriel's predicting, no, I'll have both keys by tomorrow, and I'm also gonna be telling you, Ethan, like someone is going to die
Yeah.
tonight. It's either gonna be Grace or it's gonna be Ilsa. And then this is when we find out that the entity is there at the party on the screen and whatnot, and it's making like this
I
weird
thought that was a
warbling noise.
Yeah, I thought that was a cool like transition when Ethan realizes like the whole party, or I think Alana even says like it's party, right? And then like
Yeah.
the entire party was strobed in blue already, and then all that blue light just kind of like converges and becomes like the entity thing that we've kind of seen throughout the movie. And it's making
Yeah.
some kind of weird noise. I mean, I thought it was a cool revelation in how it was done. I thought it was pretty cool. Like,
It is cool to the extent of, having that, but it's also hard to buy into because this franchise has always been someone is behind it, someone is behind it. And when you have, the person representing this entity being the saying what he's saying about like I I know that this will come to be, and like, you know what I mean, like a prophet,
yeah,
and it's sort of very it's just very cheesy.
it's because the entity is telling them, because
Yeah,
the entity is going through all, it's looking at,
probabilities
yeah,
and
it's going through like
possibilities.
millions of probabilities, like you said, and it's telling you know Gabriel, like, these are the ones that are the most likely to happen given who the players on the board. So it is like playing chess. It's like, all right, we have this setup. If this setup is happening, then the outcome is going to be this. Or if it's if Ethan says something that pivots this way, then it's going to be this. So he is in a way kind of a prophet for the end. Like, I was thinking of it
Yeah.
like he is the herald, right? Like he's the one that
Yeah,
comes in
yes.
and like says this is, you know what I mean? Like
He's the
he's
silver server to
exactly, yes. Like
the
he's
entities Galactus.
like the entity is the true villain, but he's the herald. So he comes in and tell, like, he's kind of like the voice of the
Yeah.
entity, even though the entity is the one predicting everything pretty much down to the letter.
Yeah, and I think I just have a hard time buying into it, because, like I said, what we're so used to is like I just want a big bad. Like I want the entity at this point to just be a MacGuffin and someone controlling that thing behind the scenes. But it's like, no, this is your bad.
Yeah,
The entity is the bad. So it's like you want the entity to have a cool death, but what is it gonna be? Oh, I kicked the plug
right.
and unplugged it. Like, there we go, world saved. Like that's what I mean by that is like it feels the stakes are weird. It's
But
like
it's at
they're
the bottom of
high.
the ocean. It's at the
Yeah,
bottom of the sea.
yeah, it's like really weird. Like, speaking of hammy, I mean that's the first GI Joe movie. Where the villain's fortress is underwater, and the oh
Yeah.
my god, why did I just make that comparison? They ripped off GI Joe Rise of Cobra. But yeah, so like I was saying, just like when they're having the back and forth, Ethan has this line. I wrote it down because it's the cheesiest line in the movie. In a sea of cheese, and it's Ethan. He says, kill him, Zola, kill him where he stands." Like it feels like I said, going in terms of like the biblical thing. Like this feels like something you'd see. Like that line just feels out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like especially for Ethan. Like it's just I don't know,
And we know
but
Zola's
yeah.
not going to do anything
Yeah, because yeah, he's not gonna do anything except probably get hit in the face.
again.
And again. And then yeah, this is when they decide to split up. He's like, he tells Ilsa, run as far away as you can. She just gives that nod, and he tells Grace, stay where you are, like don't move. And then this is when the fight ensues. Ilsa has that really cool, knocking that guy out, and she slides under the
Yep.
staircase, and just keeps running. Um, and then Grace doing the the hand trick with the key, and Zol, what the he gets knocked out. But I love that it does throw him off. But then, Grace continuing to make the choices that she makes, just decides to run off. And then even when she's running off and Ethan catches up with her, she throws one of the guys into Ethan. And I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, you just sat there listening about what's going on. You saw him being like, no, like this is what's going to affect the world. Like, we got to do this. And she's even seeing Alana saying, like, I got to protect myself. And she's seeing Gabriel say what he's saying. And it's like, how could you not want to trust that person? I know you got trust issues and everything like that, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
like,
She definitely makes some questionable decisions.
yeah, so it's like, she runs off again. We get Ethan running. I love that scene of him running down the corridor with the
Mhm.
lights. It does look really good, even though the corridor's not even that long because they turn. And all it is just him running down a hallway. But it does look good. And then this is when we have Benji and Luther. They're communicating, go left, go right, this and that, and then the entities knocking out like their communications and their satellites that they're hacking into. And this is when the entity takes over for Benji and starts
Yeah.
manipulating and using his voice. And I do like that they smash their laptops. Like they have that look like, cut it.
Yeah.
But then we are getting the Dutch angles again in this scene. But I do like that they have like that, like they realize, no, break it. Like, the entity's taken over. And then Benji running to warn Ethan. It felt like it was leading to Benji being taken out.
Yeah. That's what, yeah. Like we got the foreshadowing with Ilsa on the rooftop, and then, Gabriel saying one of those two women were going to die, but then Benji ends up leaving too. And I'm just like, it was either going to be Benji or Ilsa in this moment. You're just like dreading both outcomes at the, as an audience watching the
Yeah.
scene. And again, this is the other scene where the music, like from the airport scene with the music, the compose, it just kicks it up, and it just adds to that tension and that sense of dread that's looming.
Yeah. No, I agree. And
Yeah.
then while he's running, this is when it leads to the alleyway fight with
Yeah.
Paris and nameless henchman. But the thing about this alleyway fight, the Dutch angles, dude, out of control with the Dutch angles, way too shaky on the camera, and then the light was bothering me too. Like just how it looked, it was just like take two. Let's go back to the drawing board on this. We can still have the alleyway fight, but
I think since how
let's
tight the alleyway was, I'm not entirely sure how in another way you can shoot it.
Well, I mean,
So
as far as the choices to do Dutch angles and then the
yeah,
shaky cam and then the light, like, because the light does almost give off lens flare vibe to where you can barely see the action.
yeah,
And they could have made it like a little bit more like where it's silhouetted, maybe like something like that. But like having that, it just, I don't know. It, it kind of, you know what it kind of reminds you, the best example. It kind of reminds me of Batman Begins when you get doused with the toxin and you
okay,
start seeing everything all shaky and
yeah,
blurry and whatnot. That is what this scene looked like to me.
okay.
Like that. And I was like, we could have toned down some of, you can still do those things, but tone them down. a little bit, but it felt like they were like, "Nah, crank it up. Like we need to go like as hard as possible for this." But I'm like, "No, like it's the scene is still good. It's just the aspects of the scene I feel like they could have done a little differently." What did you think about it?
I mean, the scene itself didn't bother me. I thought it was one of those ones where it was a device to slow Ethan down, obviously, but I also think it kind of went on a little too long. Like they could have probably cut it a little bit. Like
Yeah.
even for time's sake, like I get why they're doing it because they're trying to add that sense of like time, right? Like time's running out, like he needs to hurry up and get like this is a mere distraction for him. But it was also like even that car chase before all this was, I think, felt went a little too long. Like definitely
Yeah.
could have trimmed that down. But because this alleyway fight scene is kind of like intercut with Ilsa and Gabriel. Like Gabriel's on the bridge, and Grace comes up, but then Ilsa also comes back because she knows
Mhm.
Ethan's not going to make it in time, so she comes back because I think the entity tells her it's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
you won't make it, Ethan, but you can
you can,
also.
Ilsa. So Ilsa makes the choice to go back and take on Gabriel herself. So we got this. We got both things like basically spliced together, and then
Yeah.
and I mean the fight between Ilsa and Gabriel is pretty. I think it's pretty well choreographed.
Dude, speaking of that bridge fight, Ilsa getting that first hit on Gabriel and him looking surprised. Like he's
Yeah,
like, "What?" Like he wasn't expecting it. She's just like she does a little head cock and it's like, "Yeah, it's Ilsa." It's like, "Come on, man."
yeah,
And she tries to leg grapple him. I like that we get that attempt, but it does, fail out and then uh the worst part of
yeah.
this movie, the part that I hate more than anything in this movie, Ilsa
Yeah,
dies. Oh,
it's not a fake out this time. At least
n-
as of this movie, it's not a fake out this time.
no. Like she
Yeah,
is stabbed in the chest.
yeah,
And I do like seeing Ethan broken.
yeah,
In this point, I like how he's getting closer and then it's starting to come more into focus. So it's still doing that out of focus thing and that shaky cam that it was doing in the alleyway, but this is when it works because you're using it in the sense of you're seeing it from his perspective and it's close up on him too. And as you're seeing her come more and more into the frame, it's getting clearer, but it's like that sense of like, oh my god, like when you're in
this
a
isn't
scene,
real. Like this isn't
yeah,
real.
like this isn't yeah, this isn't happening, this isn't happening. And then um seeing, like I said, seeing Ethan broken and then the way he touches her head, like, and he just like I wanted to see more crying, but I like that it's more of the he's holding it back, but he's also like going through the motions of I gotta stay strong, I gotta stay strong, but wanting to let out. But I feel like that would have been like perfect just to see him like, let it out a
Yeah,
little more.
at least
That
something.
would have been a knife in my heart because then it was like, oh my god, Ethan expressing emotion like that. And yeah, then we get Grace rolling up like, is this my fault? And it's like,
Kind of,
yes,
kind
yes
of.
it is. Yes, it is, Grace.
But I also like that. I don't know if it was in this moment, but it's later. Luther is like that voice of reason, or it might have been Ethan. I can't remember. But it's like Grace says, she's dead because of me, but then they flip and says, no, you're alive because of her.
Yes, so it's the very next scene. We open with Grace. She's got the blanket over her and the drink, and she asks Luther, were you close, you and she? He says, in our way. And like you just said right now, she says, I'm the reason she's dead. And says, no, she's the
Yeah,
reason you're alive. And we do get some emotion in the scene though, because it cuts to Benji wiping his face off and you hear him sniffle. And that hurt me because of his, relationship with Ilsa. It's like,
yeah,
that one really got to him. And I mean, he was there too, like right at the end. Like he
yeah.
saw
He
her.
he couldn't make it in time either.
Yeah, and he's just like, you could tell that her death hit him. And this is when Ethan comes in and they tell, well, Luther's actually the one that says it. And again, they're doing the same thing where they're trading off lines. Like I guess that was the choice they decided to make in this one with the dialogue. Instead of just someone giving a speech, someone carrying
Yeah,
it on with it, they're like, we'll each take a line, which honestly I don't really care for. I feel like it's just, it reminds me of A Knight's Tale. You have been weighed, you have been measured. Like, it's like, no, like, just deliver the dialogue. But yeah, they say you have 3 options: prison, death, or the choice.
for the choice.
Again, again, the choice, the way he says it. Um, so they say that, they were offered the choice at one point in time. So I posit a question for you. So does this mean that they were all criminals beforehand?
Hmm. Luther definitely was.
Yeah.
I don't know about Benji because the only thing we got from him in Mission Impossible 3 was he was there on a, like when he was when Ethan had called him and he was like, "Well, this is treason," and he's like, "This will affect my work visa or something like that." So he was there like you know because Simon Pegg is English, so but I mean it's possible at some point. I mean, given their natural talents, we shall say, it's very possible that they were all criminals at some point, or they did something.
Yeah, because that's what I'm, like I said, this is why I feel weird about when they say the choice, because it does undo a lot of the characters, because it makes you look at them differently now. I mean, we know they have, like, maybe sketchy past, but we don't get that from Ethan at
Yeah,
all. That is not our introduction to this character, but now you're changing his origin. Like, you're quote unquote establishing an origin, but that origin can severely change who this
yeah.
person is. So that's, like I said, that's why I have an issue with them bringing up the choice. Um, Now, this is also when we get, like, you can join us. We got to be on that train. What we can do is we'll double as the White Widow and as Zola, and we can meet the buyer. So we can, get the key, both parts of the key, get off there and do what we need to do. When they're doing the cutaway, of course, just like we did in Fallout, where they're doing the what if, when they're printing Alana's face, it looks very, very real. So I'm wondering if they had Vanessa Kirby lay there
Maybe, yeah.
and just
Green
have
screen
her lay
everything
there
else
to
out.
do it.
Yeah,
Yeah, because it looks very real right there. And then when it cuts to it, then it looks fake.
yeah,
Because then he's picking the mask up and it looks nothing like it was when it was on there. But I do like the whole transition where she puts it on and they cut and they wipe and she goes to the mirror. She still has her brown eyes, but she it's Vanessa Kirby. Then they, cut through the whole thing and they're like, wait, like, how's this gonna work? And then he said, because Ethan is like, I'm gonna get off and you're gonna stay on the train in the plan. And he said, well, you're gonna be taken into custody by clandestine services, more than likely the ones that have been chasing me, and a man will come to see you, named Kittredge. And she asked, do you trust him? He says, I trust him to recognize your value. And which is like the closest to a compliment
yeah.
that you would give Kittredge. And there's a line that makes me lose respect for Grace. So we just had everything just happen, with Ilsa sacrificing herself, Grace feeling that guilt, them talking about, hey, we can do this, let's do right. Grace tries to bargain with them about getting her money and a new identity, and she can just disappear. And they tell her, it's not going to be a matter of lasting months or years or even weeks or days. It's going to be like
Hours.
hours,
Yeah,
if that. And, like,
but I mean,
that's,
she's been a lone wolf her entire life, basically. Only,
yeah,
only. I mean, it's still in true to her character because, I mean, at this point, she's
yeah,
like in her mid 30s, so she was an orphan, so she's probably been by herself in and out of orphanage for like 30 plus, her entire like formative years, and then she's probably been on her own for another 20. So she only has herself. She only trusts herself. So I
yeah.
mean, so she's still
Which,
thinking kind of selfishly, is like, or I can just get my money, disappear, and it's like, well, it's not going to. You're not going to be able to disappear.
yeah. And like I said, it. Yes, it does go in line with her character, but just in that moment after everything we just saw
Yeah.
and how her expressing that. But she does even say, "I don't know how to feel about it," and he said, "You probably never will." But just in that moment, it's like, okay, yeah, okay, I guess you convinced me. That's me talking to you. Like you
Yeah.
convinced me on it. I guess. I'm just mad Ilsa's gone. That's
Yeah.
that's my gripe, dude. I'm still mad about
Why
that.
couldn't we
And
just
then
have both?
yeah, and then they even say, oh, we'll protect you. And I love Ethan. No, I can't promise you that. None of us can because now it's like the fact that he's always been promising, but Ilsa's death has shaken him to where he's like,
Yeah.
no, like that promise cannot be held. But I swear your life will always matter
Yeah.
to me.
That's the line I was gonna follow up with. That's the
Oh, you
no,
take
no,
the
go for it.
reins.
I
You
mean,
you
yeah.
take the reins, man.
Well, I mean, he just says like he swears to her that her life will always matter more to him than his own, and like that's kind of like the new promise. Now he's like he can't promise he can protect them, but yes, he's. I mean, and that's always been in true Ethan fashion. Like he
Yeah.
values everybody else over his own life.
Well, especially after what's said right after that, she says, "You don't even know me," and he says,
He's like,
"What
yeah,
difference does that make?"
yep.
Like it's like, oh, Ethan Hunt, ultimate sacrificer of women. No. So this is when we have the conversation between Luther and Ethan, and he says, I packed you a base parachute and a speed wing, depending on how you need to leave the train, and I modified our comms to use skywave radio, not as reliable as satellite, but completely analog, immune to the entity. Got it. And then we get a turn. We get, oh, Luther, this is where I leave you. And Ethan gives him that look like, what?
Yeah,
like, what do you mean? And he said, this is the drive from the laptop I was using last night. If there's even a trace of the entity's encoding in there, I'll find it. But it's going to take everything I've got. I have to work completely offline in a place where the entity can't find me. I have to go. Ethan's saying, I understand. So I just want to pause right there for a second. I'm going to talk about something in the next video when we do our predictions,
mhm.
but this is going to come back.
Oh, of course.
This part right here is going to come back with a prediction that I have. Now, to go back to the scene, he switches and he pivots and he says, now I have to ask you a question, not as your partner, but as your friend. What's your objective? Kill the entity. What about killing Gabriel? He knows what the key unlocks. If we need him alive, I wouldn't have forgotten it. Will you still remember that when you're looking him in the eye? Think about it. Why else would the entity want him to kill someone you care about? Everyone else thinks they can control the entity. Only you want to kill it. In some probable future, it sees you winning Avengers Endgame,
Yep.
Ethan. And it's afraid. It's afraid of you taking Gabriel alive and forcing him to tell you what the key unlocks. I believe it's counting on one of two probable outcomes. In one outcome, you die on that train. In another outcome, you kill Gabriel. In both cases, the entity wins. Luther, I think you're right. Get the key, get off the train alive. Do not kill Gabriel. And do not, I repeat, do not alter the plan. But in true Mission Impossible fashion, immediately the next scene, they have to alter the plan because
The
the
plan gets
mask.
altered.
This is this cements that you cannot trust the mask anymore. At least the
No,
technology that they use now. It's like they're using
like
Windows 7 or they're using
yeah,
Windows Vista now to make these masks when they should have just kept using XP because XP was good, old, and reliable, old faithful. Now it's just like anytime they try to print like a second mask or anything, it screws up.
yep,
Because, yeah, starting from the fourth one on is just boom. Every single one of them has had a mask screw up to where it's like, okay, I just got to go in as myself then. So yeah, Grace is gonna have to go as the White Widow by herself. Ethan will find the way on the train, and I like that they cut to the little scene of the train slowing down, and Ethan's just standing there on the bike. He just does a little jump on top. Like the train looks like it's only going like 5 miles an hour. He's just like,
Yep.
like very anticlimactic and whatnot. But yeah, so we go ahead and get that. Um, from there they talk about, okay, we're gonna do this and that, and they tell Grace is like, I'm gonna need a few more details, and Benji, they just tend to get in the way. And then this is when we finally cut to the Austrian Alps on the Orient
Express.
Express. Yeah, and we immediately start with the superhero landing with Paris just chilling up on top of the bridge, jumps down and knocks that guy out. And then after she knocks him out, so I noticed something about him knocking him out. So he's in that cart. All he is knocked out from what it looks like. It doesn't look like she killed him. I could be wrong, but it looks like he's just knocked out.
Yeah.
And to jump a little bit forward, when the train scene happens, that guy dies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Either way, if she did not
He's
kill him,
done.
that
Yeah.
guy dies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's dead. He's gone now.
Which I wonder if that's why she did the heart for him. It's just like, hey, one last good thing before you die.
Yeah.
So, after that, and she knocks him out because all we hear is the thud, and it just cuts to him down on the ground. Then we cut to this case that she's unlocking, and we cut to Gabriel. Like, what is with the mask inside the case that he's wearing? Like, it's very Die Another Day. He's just like freaking.
That's the entity talking
It's
to him.
like,
I think it's the entity showing him stuff, like implanting things into his brain or something.
yeah, but then he takes it off. Is it just like an oxygen tank, I guess, when
Something.
he's just like chilling in there? Because then he's like,
I think it's yeah. I
it's
mean,
like he's getting brainwashed.
it's like kind of. It's kind of like him. Well, one is probably feeding him the oxygen to be able to stay in that like case for however long he was in it. But it's also like the entity just like I guess drilling things into his mind or something.
So I have another alternate theory. This is Paramount Pictures joint. So Zoolander is also a Paramount Pictures joint. Is it a Mugatu plot twist? Kill the Malaysian Prime Minister. But yeah, I just thought it was kind of cheesy. Just like I said, we're already leaning into the cheese and the over the topness, and I feel like that just kicked it up even more. But yeah, and then we cut to Gabriel breaking all the gears and handles to make the train go faster. He literally throws that guy off the train, and then he just shovels to the face on the other one, and then just hangs him. And
Yep.
we get Back to the Future 3 vibes with just trying to get this train as fast as possible. Um, and then this is when we cut to, we're finally getting the White Widow knocked out and whatnot. Grace is taking her place. And as they're walking through, this is when we get Briggs and Degas having the drink at the bar, which they're having the conversation about Ethan going rogue and also having the power from that key. What if he had a good reason to go rogue? Honestly, this conversation doesn't need to exist.
I
We
think
don't
it's
need
just
this scene.
I think it's
It's
just
just
in
to give them
place.
something to do.
Well, not only that, it's just also in place to kind of like have that turn later on when when Kitcher's just trying to give him orders and he's just like, well, you're not really here, and he's like actually siding with Ethan at that point. It's
See,
kind of
but
just
that's what the whole train, when they're on top of it, that's what that scene is for.
I think it's
Like, this
just
is just to give them more stuff to do, and honestly probably give them the paycheck of like,
probably
hey. But like, I just feel like you don't really need this conversation. It gives you a little bit more backstory on the characters, but that's all they are, is they're just background characters, and that's all they
yeah.
need to be. We're just following along. A conversation like this is more akin to like if it was like Zola and Alana having a conversation like that. That would mean more because she's a big part of what's going on with the story. They're more like side characters versus side characters. They don't really add anything to the story aside from, we've been tasked to do this with Ethan. We've been tasked to, get him. But I do like that they show Alana having the mini panic attack
Yeah.
in there, where she's like, and again, like I said, that goes back to what I've brought up in the past in Fallout about like, it would be cool if they were to do something with like a spinoff. I don't want them to, But had they had done like a little side movie with her taking on the role of White Widow and showing like she's not in it completely, like she's even still unsure. Like it shows like she's just like, I have to put that face and that front on.
Yeah.
But behind closed doors, I'm like, I'm collapsing, dude. It's like I'm in over my head, like I'm doing too much. And this is when, like I said, she gets knocked out. And I like that that line that she has to that Zola has to her, hey, you changed and you never will.
And it is something, she would say too. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Condescending, like
yeah,
it's like a backhanded condescending compliment, but not really a compliment. And this is when we cut to the buyer on the train. Dun dun dun. Turns out it's
of
Kittredge. Because of
course.
course, Kittredge on a train, because we're ending the movie with the train, just like we did the first movie. Parallels again.
Yep.
And yeah, they said I didn't get the full line, but well, prior to that, this is when he's like, you're not the Alana, that
Yeah.
that I know. He's like, "Duh, duh." And then that's just to establish that he's known their family, since the
And
first
since the first
movie.
movie, yeah.
Paris. Yeah, so when they sit down, I'm paraphrasing with the line because I couldn't get it all, but he says, on behalf of my government, I am begrudgingly ready to accept the terms, or something along those lines. Of he's like he wants it, but he knows that they more than likely want it for something else.
Yeah.
um and he talks about the agreement with her mother, and that our common interests, again, a throwback to the first movie. And this is when another plot twist within the plot twist within the plot twist. It turns out that Gabriel's having a meeting as well, but with Denlinger.
Yeah.
Denlinger,
Something.
right? I can never pronounce his name, but yeah, oh my god, another plot twist. Carrie Ellis is on the train as well. And this is when we find out that he wants to join forces with Gabriel to use the entity to make the government the powerhouse, that puts the other countries in their place, and enhancing the military industrial complex. He's like, oh, but for the greater good.
Of
Because he's also
course.
talking about taking out people that don't agree with him, which, uh, how Hydra, how Winter Soldier
Yeah.
of them. And it's also to hide the fact that he was part of the reason why the submarine was destroyed and how the entity went rogue. So he's also trying to cover that up as well. And I
And
like how he's like,
he's the only one that knows where that sub is located.
and then
Yep.
like, I like that the throat slit's not over the top, it's just instant he's on the ground, but we do see the pool of blood.
Yeah. Can't show the splatter.
Yeah, and then we get his little Gabriel's little prophecy. You will betray us. Just the way he talks. You'll betray us because Ethan spared your life. And then this is another issue I have, is he attempts to kill Paris, but we don't see him stab Paris, because he does end up stabbing her. It's revealed after he runs off. It pans down and she has a knife in her stomach. Now, he
Yeah.
does always carry two, but I was watching the scene and you never see him make an impact at all. So I don't know how the knife got in there, but apparently it did.
Yeah. He's just that
And
fast.
yeah, so far, I mean, we haven't really talked more about this scene, but is there anything that you wanted to bring up that I didn't hit on so far before we
No.
talk about the jump?
The jump, yeah. No, I mean all of it was just getting all the players in all the pieces in place, right? All the players from the movie all in that one central location. Because again, it
Yeah.
is kind of like a callback to the first one.
Yeah, and again, parallels.
Yep.
That's all this is now. It's just the first one, the first one, the first one, the first one. So now, during this entire time, Ethan's been trying to catch up with the train, because they figure out, of course, Gabriel had to go, and, he made the train faster. So Benji's trying to find him an alternate route, which we get a self-driving car, which is kind of scary, but cool at the same time. I
Did you
love that he
think the
looks at the
entity
church.
was? But did you think the entity? Yeah, he plugs it in because I was like, man, I was like, this is kind of weird. Like the entity's gonna take over this car.
the first time we saw it in theaters, yes. After that, because it had been so long, I didn't even think about it. But that's the kind of comic relief I'm talking about. That is good visual comic relief
Like
where
putting on the seatbelt.
it,
Yeah,
where it's before that. It's the look at the steering wheel, the realization, and then putting on the
yeah.
seatbelt. Like that's a good visual gag. That is Mission Impossible humor right
Mhm.
there. Um, so yeah, it's like Ethan's got to find another route, and he's like, am I ever gonna start going downhill? He's like, keep going. No, it's just and you can hear like he's not telling him, but he knows what he's gonna need to do. And then this is when we get to the top of the cliff, and he's like, how am I? Where do I go? Like, how do I get down? He's like, just jump.
Jump. Mhm.
He's
It's
like,
like you got a
jump.
parachute.
Yeah. And then he's talking about how, I'm gonna hit the side of the cliff, and I don't even know if I'll clear the valley enough to get onto a moving train. And then Benji just snaps. He's like, I'm under a lot of pressure. And Ethan's like, okay.
Yeah,
And
calling
he's
back
like,
the
how am I
Rogue
gonna?
Nation. Rogue Nation's
Yeah,
in the Opera House. Yeah,
yeah. And he's like, okay,
I
okay.
like when Benji snaps against Ethan.
Yeah. But Ethan's always calm about it. Like he's never like yelling back at him. He's like, okay, like let me see what I can do. And he's like, I need, how do I get there? How do I get there? Dude, and he turns around. That cliff, why does it look like Pride Rock from The Lion King?
It does.
Like,
It's
I'm
just
just waiting
like,
for freaking Rafiki to come
oh,
out holding
just
Simba
yep.
up.
It's like, here it is,
And
Ethan.
yeah, so he's looking back at it, and it's just like he's like, okay, I'm gonna go after it. And then this is where we get the jump. And again, realistically done. The jump looks great. And again, like I've had an issue throughout this entire franchise. My issue is not with the stunts, because the stunts look amazing and they look great. It's the implementation of using CGI to cover up the tracks, to cover up like anything
The
that they're
ramp,
using. Yeah, the ramp
the ramp for
itself.
this. Yeah, because they
Yeah.
were on like they're on the cliff face and they built a ramp like out of wood to lead up off of it. So of course you have to CGI the landscape around it, and yeah, you can tell it was you can tell it's fake, right? Like it kind of
Yeah.
looks a little
It's
out of it.
bad. Like it looks really bad. And and again, this is what hurts those stunts. Like I would have been more happy if they had just put fake rocks on the side or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Just to like hide the ramp, just something along those lines. Keep it as practical as possible. Heck, even a freaking a miniature.
yeah. I
Like
mean,
still have him, but impose it onto a miniature or something like that, just to where you can change the environment a little more. But the CGI, especially because they have the money to do this, but
it's
it's like,
also it's not spent on CGI.
it's not.
I mean,
Which
this movie
if it,
almost cost 300 million already.
yeah, and it's like, oh man, like like I said, that's my only gripe with that. But I like it. It is good. Man, especially just to cut, a little bit past, the actual train, everything that's going on there. We have Alana, just real Alana trying to get up. She just keeps
Just keeps
falling
passing out.
over. Yeah. And then the whole time we get the key and we have the money coming through, and Grace is like, just waiting it. We keep looking at it, and she decides, she has, her conscience kicks in, and she's like, you know what, decline. I'll sleep better knowing it's in better hands. She takes the key, she leaves, and then this is when the other Alana comes in, the real Alana, and she's just like, "Oh, hey, who do you think it is?" She collapses. Kittredge catches her, and he's like, "She's got the key." Who? I love his delivery. The other one. And this is when we cut to the other car. She takes off the mask. She's trying to hit the brakes, but nothing's going. They start chasing her. She's in the car with her hands up. She does the magic trick again with the key, and then henchman number 57 comes in to try to get the key from her. Then we get Ethan parachute ex machina straight into the
Boom.
train. Which again,
Had to
I
hurt.
guess yeah, and Ethan is still alive after
Yeah,
slamming into the side of a train through
no
the
broken
train.
bones, no broken bones. Like
Yeah, and just
yeah,
perfectly like right
right
there.
through the
But that other guy
window.
doesn't, and that guy
No.
has the key, so they're lucky he didn't fall out, still holding onto the key. And this is when Zola comes up. He grabs the key. We get parachute ex machina again, pulls it out, knocks Ethan into Zola, knocks Zola unconscious. And then they're like, we need to go ahead and we need to try to stop this train. So they decide, we're gonna split up. And Grace, you go stop the train. I need to go after Gabriel, because Gabriel shows up and he picks
Yeah,
up the other
picks up the
key.
key. Yeah.
And then, yay, we get a top of the train fight scene. But prior to that, right
Parallels.
before they do, Kittredge and Briggs have a scene where he comes in and he's like, "Sir," I like that he grabs his face to try to take a mask off. He's like, he just like swaps his hand away. He's like, "What are you doing here, sir?" He's like, "I'm not here, but you are. And unless you want to be sorting dead letters at the postal service tomorrow, you'll do exactly what I tell you." That is a Henry Czerny line. It's very like,
Yeah,
I want him
it's a
manning. I
callback.
want him manning an
They'll
unmanned.
say it's a callback to the Alaska line in the first one. Yep.
Yeah. Just mail him his clothes. Like that. That's again like he. It's the delivery though, and just that phrase, like sorting dead letters at the postal service tomorrow. Like it's like I want them doing something, but it's gonna be somewhere so remote. Like it's
And so
his version of
mundane.
hell.
Yeah, it's mundane in a remote location.
Yes, like what can I do to really severely punish this person? And like you said, it is a callback, but it's just that one is pretty funny to me. And this is when we cut to the fight. So again, this just feels like an enhanced version of the fight from Mission Impossible 1, but with less suspense. Because that first one
Yeah.
has suspense. That is suspenseful. This one, it's it's too, the steam and the smoke looks bad. There are moments where it does look really good. I will give it that. But then there are some where you can tell it's CGI and it does look bad. It's very Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, but during the daytime. Um, and then when they're in the tunnel, and then you have Gabriel with the knives when he goes on the side of the train. Dude, those knives are pretty strong for them to hold him up, because
Yeah.
all he does is just like into the side. And from what I saw, those are just like little pocket knife
How
things.
strong do you got to be to cut through the train, right?
Exactly. I'm
Like
like,
I
what
imagine
is the
it's
entity
some
doing?
yeah, or like is it steel? Is it just straight aluminum? Like what's this train made out of?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it ensues. They eventually get on the top where, Ethan has the knife at his neck. And then this is when Briggs shows up with Degas, and they're on the top, and like, Ethan, put it down, put it down. And he's just like, okay, okay, like we're good. But just make sure you take him into custody. And then you see like a countdown on the watch. And then Gabriel jumps off the train into the back of a truck. And he's like, no, no. And he's like not, he's not saying it, but you can see it on his face. And while they're doing that, he's like, they're getting ready, like a beam's coming, and he drops Briggs down, and Degas, does the same, which I think is pretty messed up. He say Briggs, but Degas is like, you're on your own, dude.
Right?
But yeah, so that establishes the trust right there. He gives him the gun. He tells him, if you don't listen to me, everyone on this train's gonna die, or you need to do exactly what I say. He hands him the gun, so he builds that trust. They cut to Degas, trying to translate, and he's like, everybody to the back of the... All he does is just cock the gun, right? He's like, everybody to
Yep.
the back of the train.
I think he shoots
And
it up
then,
too, if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken, just to get everybody alert. Yeah.
yeah, he's like, everybody to the back. And then we cut to Grace. Ethan makes his way up there. And then while they're doing that, we get a cut to the bridge. Are those not the same exact designs of the bombs at the end of Fast X? Are
it
they
looked
not?
it looked but I mean, which one came out first? This one or Fast X?
That's the question.
Or like at least which one filmed first? Because like I said, this one filmed before like COVID started. It was filming
Exactly.
before COVID started. So who copied who?
That's why it's like, ooh, because that's what hurt it, is because of the filming. Because Fast X came out in
20,
23.
2020. So did this one.
This came out in 23 as well. Yeah, so it was like, oh, we'll just copy and paste.
At least I think this one came out. Yeah, 2023 because it didn't come
Yeah,
out last year.
yeah, because this one came out release date July 12th, and I think this one Fast X came out in April or May, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly. It
But
came
again, which one
out
filmed
May
first?
19th.
Which one
This one Fast
filmed
X.
first?
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, they were both rush jobs in a way. But like I said, that's the first thing that stood out to me, is that bomb. I was like, no, again with the Fast X.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, the train crash itself, it looks bad. Do you know if any of it was filmed practically?
That's I was looking up. So it says it was mostly practical. They built a real functional train, including replicas of the Orient Express carriages that could be operated on working railroad tracks. And they said they used the train for many scenes, including the fights on the roof at 60 miles per hour, the train running off the rails, and even a crash into the quarry. It says some shots, like the exterior views of the falling cars, used VFX, but the
Yeah.
core action and the train itself were real. Like, and it
And
says, the actors actually climbed through vertically suspended cars.
that I believe. But yeah, the train's falling, no, definitely. And I wish they hadn't made those little visual enhancements
Yeah.
to it crashing. Again, miniatures.
Yeah. I think
Miniatures would
for
work.
sure, like the
Or
explosions, right, were probably,
yeah, or just go
VFX.
for it.
Hmm.
Freaking Back to the Future 3 did it. They run a train off the track and you watch it, and it looks so good. It looks so good. Like, that's what I mean, is like, there's parts where you can do it and parts where just go for it. Like, just go for it and do it. But yeah, when you use the CGI and combine it, it's just no. No. And then the train crash itself, they're climbing through it like you've said before, Uncharted style,
Uncharted style, yeah.
inspired. And Paris saving them. How did she get behind the bar?
I mean,
Because you don't see her during it, like while
no.
it's happening, because it's real fast. Because then all of a sudden she's like, it's Paris Ex Machina. She's behind the bar. She's holding on to Ethan, which I guess she's really strong. She's like she's holding on
Adrenaline.
to the both of them.
Adrenaline.
Yeah, that's probably why she's like getting ready to die so fast. She's
Yep.
just like, ugh, all this blood loss, but I'm still able to carry them. And this is when we get the little conversation. Ethan asks her, what is it? Then we find out everything we've known this entire movie. Oh, it's the submarine. That's what it is. Like, I think that's what cuts the legs out of the movie, is because we already see as the audience what it is, where it came from, so we don't get to go along with them on the adventure.
Yeah.
We already know, and it's them just trying to figure out. And the whole time you kind of want to scream at the screen, it's the entity source code. Like, unless there's gonna be another plot twist, I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
it's right there. But like I said, I feel like it does cut the legs out of the movie. um this is when Ethan escapes. Oh, I only have one parachute, but they already know, like, oh,
Yeah.
Grace is
He
like,
was
oh,
he
it
was
was.
gonna be the only one getting off the train. That was the original plan. Like it was supposed to be just him, not her.
Yeah. And I mean, it worked out. It
Yeah.
was fine. She was like, it follows through. Kittredge comes up, face to authentic face. And the way that she words it is, she says that, Ethan Hunt says, you're a man I can trust, that you would give me a choice and I choose to accept. And it's like, yes, technically, but you were supposed to tell him that Ethan gave you the choice and that you accepted.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, it still works out. But then we cut to, Ethan with Kittredge voiceover. It's just the same thing from the beginning, from the mission. It's just slightly altered. And then we cut to the submarine, from the beginning. And
Yeah.
then End credits. End of part one.
One.
So, was there anything that I missed on that, or anything you wanted to touch on, or?
I don't think so. I mean, yeah, I mean Gabriel ended up getting away. So both situations that like Luther didn't, and how like he times it like right before the explosion, like he times falling off the train like right into a a cart full of whatever. Like still
Yeah.
like that's not going to be a perfect fall. He's gonna whatever. It doesn't matter. But like that's also like a James Bond getaway type move, right? Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, like Luther said that there's probably going to be two scenarios that the entity is counting on. Either you kill, Gabriel, and maybe the entity was hoping Gabriel would kill Ethan and then fall off the train. But now
Yeah.
they're both alive, so now we're kind of entering that 14,605,000 like only one scenario, right? So but this time like we didn't know what that one scenario was in Infinity War. This one, like, well, you never know, right?
Yeah.
But other
I
than
I
that, like, yeah, other than that, I was like, nah, like that was pretty much good coverage of the whole movie.
Thank you, thank you. There was one thing I forgot to mention, and I wasn't going to, but we kept talking about '90s references and whatnot. But there's one scene. It was after Gabriel's in the back of the truck. He reaches into his pocket and he pulls out the lighter, and he gives an Ethan. Now I want to know if that was homage just to villains from the '90s, or was that a throwback to La Bamba? Richie! And
Maybe
that they were
both.
like, we need to have him scream at least once in the movie.
We'll say maybe both.
Yeah, why not right at this point? But yeah, like we said, that is our coverage of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1.
One.
We made it to the end of the foreseeable franchise aside from the Final Reckoning. But yeah, now we're gonna jump into the main thing. I didn't get a chance to get them all for you, Robert, and I didn't get them for myself, so I do apologize about that. But what are you thinking out of 10?
Out of 10. So this one's kind of hard because it is a part originally was a part one of part two. So it's kind of like that whole Infinity War Endgame, right? Like it's kind of hard to base those two movies as not, the sum of its parts, right? So the score for this one could get affected based on how Final Reckoning goes. I mean, just depends, right?
Yeah.
So I think to start, I would say this one is probably like a 6.5, maybe a 7 out of 10. I think there is a lot to enjoy. It is somewhat hard to follow, story wise at some points, especially when you get to like a lot of the AI terminology that it just seems like it's like a generic based terms that just get thrown out. Um, but I mean, again, the set pieces are fun. If you're just watching it through, they're a lot of fun. I mean, I think some of them went on a little too long. Probably could have trimmed the overall runtime of this movie down. But again, I think a lot of it's just going to hinge on how you know Final Reckoning goes. So right now, I would probably lean more closer to a 7. But there's a lot to enjoy. There's some things that I could go and nitpick on, and I do think the story is while it's kind of thin, but it is a little difficult to follow at some points just because a lot of exposition is getting thrown at you, and like Ryan said, it's getting thrown at you by like 4 different people instead of just one person, so it's kind of like janky in a way. So, but overall, I think there's still quite a bit to enjoy. I'd probably give it like a 7.
Okay. Not bad. I feel like because we've gone through this journey together that we've been like locked in step as we've progressed. I am actually agreeing with you that this movie is a 7 out of 10.
Nice.
Um and I will say this is the one entry that feels the weirdest to me, and that's saying a lot, especially after MI2. And the reason being is because I feel like with MI2, we're still getting it established because, we just had the first one, so we don't really know what this movie is.
Yep.
And when you get Dead Reckoning, we've already had 6 previous entries. And especially after the 5th one, where you feel like, okay, we've established a new footing, like we've reinvented
Yeah.
what this is, but we're still honoring it. And it feels like, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen for Fallout, our coverage on that, it feels like after 5, it gets predominantly worse.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad movie. Don't get me wrong. It's not a
Mm-mm.
bad movie, but it's not a great one either. And like we said about like we brought up about Fallout as well. This one has a very big Fast and the Furious feel to it. The tone, like I said earlier, is all over the place. So many callbacks to the first one, but it feels like I said to prior is that they're trying to rewrite it or at least change the lore. The addition of the oath and the choice feels out of place. Way too late in the franchise to be adding it. It would make more sense to bring something back like the knock list or something along those lines to make the story more cohesive towards the first one. I really like what you said earlier about having Gabriel be tied to the first one. Like he's the one who was actually brokering stuff,
Mm-hmm.
in the background, because then it's like, okay, now we have a full story. But now what we're doing is we're looping back, but we're going back even further.
Yeah.
Then we're going to loop back and tie it back in. And it's like, you can't really do that towards the end. You need to establish that earlier
Yeah.
to make it more cohesive. And at 2 hours and 43 minutes,
Yeah.
for a runtime. It's up there with Fallout as one of the longest entries. But I will say this: this video that we're doing right now will still be shorter than the
Mm-hmm.
movie, but it'll come very close.
Yeah.
Um,
This one went way too long.
no such thing. We had to talk about this. We had to unpack a lot, and having the villain be AI, like I said, is an interesting concept, but making it the big bad is very weak.
Yeah.
Gabriel should have been the main villain, but he's been relegated to henchman slash apostle, uh, or like you said, herald in service of the entity. And Ethan even makes mention of it with the entity being his god. He's like, "There's nowhere, that you and your god,
Yeah.
can hide." Like it gets very biblical out of nowhere with this movie, and it just, like I said, it's you'd see this more in a Fast and the Furious, something cheesy like that, or even later James Bond movies. But for MI, like, no, not
Yeah.
for my
I
machine
think they
whatsoever.
wanted to. I think they wanted some kind of like zealot as a villain, but they didn't want to lean into which religion, so they kind of went more towards like a technological revolution, and hence
Yeah,
Gabriel being the zealot on bringing on this AI, artificial
yeah.
intelligence. But yeah, like I mean, we could still find out more about Gabriel's backstory, I guess, in Final Reckoning. But if you're going to establish him in this one, we probably needed that in this film.
And that's what I
So
wanted to say earlier to
yeah,
bring it back to now, but I didn't want to say it too early, is that if Gabriel's going to be established as a villain and we keep showing these flashbacks, you need to elaborate it in part 1 of your
yeah,
movie. If you're going to have a part 2 is the wrap up, the conclusion, or a last minute revelation.
yeah.
But they don't do any of that. We still don't even know who the girl is.
Hmm.
We don't know who the girl is. We
No,
barely know anything about Gabriel. The only thing we know about Gabriel and his character is that he's a zealot, and that's how he's portrayed. Like he
like
comes off like a madman.
even if we got like if we got two perspectives of that flashback, one from Ethan in this movie, like you would have if you would have shot that whole flashback and we got that entire thing. That's what I'm saying. So like you could have made certain scenes in this movie shorter and expand on that flashback. Like give us that entire thing from Ethan's point of view, and then maybe in the next one you get it from Gabriel's point of view, and then you can kind of blend what actually happened in terms of what, and then we can find. And
Your
then if you
opening
want,
scene,
and
your
then
opening scene for both
exactly
movies.
if you want to tie it back, like, but yeah, I mean, I don't know how they're gonna. Again, this is gonna be Ethan's origin story, right? Apparently, so if you get both of those perspectives, I think that could have added some nuance to Gabriel, but we didn't get that either. Or like we got a brief, like what 3 second
If
of
that.
Yeah, Gabriel killing that unknown woman that we didn't know until you look up it on IMDb.
Yeah.
So, but again, it could change, but the overall experience of this one could change based on how Final Reckoning goes.
Yeah.
But in terms of like establishing your villain, like you did that way better with Solomon Lane, and he was kind of a two-part villain in a sense with Rogue
Yeah.
Nation and Fallout. So if you're gonna establish this guy as the villain of all villains, because he's gonna be the bad guy for the final two movies, he has to. This is where you go big, like with what you want to do with that character. And I felt like they didn't do it quite well in this one with him.
No, I agree. I agree. And whether that be due to the shooting of the movie, whether that be to the script, I feel like they honestly should have just bit the bullet either way and just really honed in on how are we going to showcase him as the bad, because we have to introduce him. But that goes back to what I said earlier about the entity needs to be used as a MacGuffin and Gabriel be the main bad, but it's
Yeah,
flipped.
yeah,
And now we don't really know much about the Herald, and like it's very weird, and like I said, the tone is everywhere. But at the end of it, 7 out of 10
yeah,
is where I sit.
yeah. Because I also have questions like, how did the entity find Gabriel? Did Gabriel find the entity? Like, how was that? Did they ever mention how he became that
Uh,
zealot towards the entity? Right? Like, it's just
No, and that's what it feels like it's going to leave open in part two, quote unquote. But
yeah,
again, like that's something that you set up in this movie. You set up your villain, his
yeah,
origin story, all that stuff, and then in the second one, you leave this one on a cliffhanger, and on the second one, you continue from that. You have that final battle, duke it
yeah,
out, and then you got it. That is how you do a part one and a part two. Not like this, where it's like, okay, let's introduce some of this stuff that has nothing to do with the first one, but maybe something to do with the character from the first movie. It's when you're marketing this as this is the final,
yeah,
it's too late. It's way too late to be doing that. You need to establish that 2 movies prior, maybe even the movie before, but 2 movies prior.
yeah,
Like this is something that should have been set up in Rogue Nation with
yeah,
Solomon. And if you want to talk biblical, they did biblical right.
yeah.
Like that's how they did it. You have the apostles, you have, targeting these holy areas. Like
Like,
that is how you tie biblical in. This is more like religious zealot,
yeah, like I
but
didn't
has
like
nothing to do with religion. Like
had they
it's
even mentioned like he was a former apostle, right? Like that's how maybe the
yeah,
entity. I mean, we could still get that. However, like if you're gonna establish him as a two
but it's
part
gonna feel
villain,
forced. It's
exactly
gonna
like
feel forced.
you should have done it in this one. Like, you get the backstory or you get the motivation, and then you can just in the next one, it's just all you don't need any of that kind of development. It's just we're just going for it.
You know what?
You can have a
I
revelation.
I I'm gonna do something you just you just convinced me. I'm actually changing my score to a 6.5, because after talking that out, it's like no, like it's like I'm upset by this movie just because of that. It's like you didn't set up your bad correctly. You didn't set up your villain enough. So yeah, 6.5 is where I'm sitting at.
You know what we should do for this video?
What?
We should cut it and do part one and part two. Just cut it like
Oh my god, I'll do it. I'll do it.
that'd be hilarious.
I will
Um,
do it. I promise you. You have convinced me.
just like I
I will
don't
do it.
like. I guess right after Ilsa, just boom, cut it. Oh man, but
Oh man.
yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I won't change my score, but it's like we could go back to like the Infinity War Endgame. Like they established who Thanos was like in Infinity War, so when we got to
Yeah.
Endgame, we didn't need any of that. It's just boom, we're just going all for it.
Yeah, and that is a product of good story writing. The
Yeah,
dialogue not so much, but I mean as far as like the overall I'm going to set up my villain. He's been teased before, but this is where you're going to see him in action, maybe a little bit of his backstory, but we're not going to get, full thing, but he's also telling you
yeah.
throughout
You get his backstory for the most part,
his
and
motivation.
his motivation. Like it's kind of like what all we need right there, and we didn't really
Yeah.
get that
And then
with Gabriel.
you show that he's a threat, and
Hmm.
they do that, and then they end it by, oh my god, like he wins,
Yep.
and you leave it on a cliffhanger. Boom. That is how you do a part one. Part two is a continuation of that. It's the aftermath of that. How do we collect ourselves? Do we go back to what we've done, or do we have to create something new to move forward?
Yeah.
And ultimately it's going to culminate in one final battle, the battle for it all, the soul of whatever it is. And that's the misfooting on this. Like I said, it hurts it more than it does to prop it up. So yeah, like in good conscience, after talking it through, I can't give it a 7 now. After discussing that, like it's got to be a 6.5. I won't go any lower than that because like I
Yeah.
said, it's not a bad movie, but it's not great. But
Yeah.
the
It's
character and the story, it hurts it.
just things in retrospect you think about that probably could have improved it overall, like just
Yeah.
story wise. Like, I mean, I'm not going to get into, like what they could have, like, I mean, obviously the effects could have been better, but timeline, the timetable, who knows? COVID had a negative impact on this movie, but that should have given them at least a little bit more time to flesh out some of the. I don't know how far into filming they were. Like, I could look it up, but they could have, in retrospect, like the story is what you got to get right first and
Yeah.
foremost,
If
and
anything
then
changes, just the set pieces, like as far as
something.
what you're
And
gonna
you can,
do,
and
but you
again,
don't have to change the story. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like where it's like,
yeah.
oh, you got to lock that in first and foremost. If you do not have that strong story, it is all going to fall apart. And no matter how much set dressing, how much, quips, how many, funny moments you have, it's not going to save the final product. It's going to hurt it.
I was gonna see who was the writer. Bruce Geller.
Uh,
Oh, I mean, the original created by Chris McHugh did it, and Eric. I'm gonna Henderson. Henderson. I mean, I'm gonna mispronounce that.
so he was a producer of Band of Brothers,
Yeah,
which I was like, well, you think we'd get like a little bit more of that in here, but I mean, other than that, it's mainly like TV movies. He did some stuff, one
yeah.
like early 2000, but nothing too much. But it's
It
like,
makes me think who had the most influence on this script,
yeah,
because this doesn't feel like a Chris McHugh, you know, written movie.
yeah,
Maybe just the baseline, like underlying story of whatever it is, and then this guy did another pass on it.
yeah. All
That's why it
right,
kind of feels a little, it's kind of like all over the place a little bit. But you got to go
yeah,
into it like, yeah, your diehards are going to watch this, but you got to kind of go in like, and it could be like you are too close to the story to the point where it's like, okay, everything makes sense to you because you're the one writing it. But then
yeah.
you got to like take a step back and be like, okay, well, someone get some fresh eyes on it or something.
Yeah, because eventually you have to stop adding, which is what it feels like it's doing in this. Is it's adding
Yeah.
too much. Like it's adding Grace. Okay, oh, we added Grace, we got to take Ilsa out. Oh, we added this. Okay, now we have the agents coming in. Okay, we got to add them. Okay, oh, we got to bring Kittredge back, so we're adding more. Oh, no, wait, there's another bad guy. We have to. Oh, he's in the government too. We got to add that. It's like it's no, 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 no. Like take away,
Mm-hmm.
take away. Like less is more. Less is more. All right. But
So
yeah, I mean,
on to the
but
ranking.
yes, on to the ranking, my good sir. Since this is the last outing, this is your baby, your show. Where are you going to be putting Dead Reckoning?
See, now that I'm looking at this, I'm kind of, I mean, I got to put it somewhere. Again, it's still a good movie. So I want to put it probably, I'm going to put it here. But again, everything can change because I will revisit this after, Final Reckoning. Because again,
Oh,
when it comes to two-part movies, I like to look
yeah.
at the movies based on how they work together.
Okay.
But I think looking at this, I will make a slight change because I think I only want one
Oh,
S. I only
plot
want one.
twist.
I only want
Plot
one
twist.
S tier in this franchise.
Oh,
So I think I'm gonna slide Ghost Protocol down to A.
oh, dun dun dun.
I mean, still Rogue Nation is still the top,
Rogue Nation
and
is
I
a pretty baller movie.
yeah, I think I'm okay with that because I think you can't have two S tiers in a franchise. At least not.
Can't you though?
You can, I suppose, and maybe we will when we do the MCU, or maybe we have like the actual like S plus plus or whatever it is. But
The Fast and the Furious franchise.
uh, maybe Fast Five. I don't know. But just since there's only 7 movies, I think I'm, like I said, still a great movie. You know, but I think Rogue Nation is just peak Mission Impossible. So I think I'm gonna lock that in as my final rankings.
Mission Impossible or Mission Impossible. Who wants to be a
Yep.
millionaire? All right, yeah, no pressure. All right, so last but not least, where am I putting you, Dead Reckoning? So we talked a lot about this one. We talked
Yes.
quite a bit. I had a prediction of where I was going to be putting it initially. Um, but like I said, I watched it a couple more times. It did grow on me, but after talking it through with you, which is why this channel exists, is through our conversations we're able to have, get even deeper into the meaning of the movies or just things behind it. This is actually going to be a C tier for me. And
Okay.
again, I was aiming towards lower B,
Low and B.
like a B minus C plus. But yeah, I'm feeling like this one's just sitting at a C. Like I said, as when we go 5 on, the movies just progress. Like they start off pretty good, and then it just starts going down in quality.
Yeah.
And yeah, still better than Mission Impossible 2.
Of course.
But not as good as Ghost Protocol, not as good as Fallout,
Nah.
close but not as good as Mission Impossible 3, and nowhere near my MI1 and my Ghost Protocol. Those are my babies right there. But yeah, that's where I'm sitting so far on that. So thank you all so much for joining us on this journey. It was a journey, to say the least. And I'm definitely going to take Robert's note, and this is going to be a two-parter. This is going to be, because as of right now, we're approaching, without editing, 2 hours and 33 minutes.
That's way too long.
So no such thing for the diehards.
Way
Hey,
too
you
long.
sit this long for Mission Impossible, you can sit this long with us. But yeah, like I said, we do this because we love it and we really love this franchise. So stay tuned. There is one more video coming. We'll be doing our final predictions on Mission Impossible, the final reckoning, quote unquote, part 2. That'll be coming out sometime after this. But thank you all so much for watching and going on this journey with us. And like Robert always says, please be sure to like and subscribe and get down in the comments. We want to hear from you. Where do these movies rank? What is your favorite one? Do you feel the same way we do about Dead Reckoning? What are your predictions? Aside from that, Robert, want to let them know what else we got going on?
Yeah, I feel like this video series is also kind of meta in how we just got longer and longer with each movie. But
You're not wrong.
I mean, but yeah, so we have our complete coverage of our Mission Impossible ranked series. If you've made it to this one, and hopefully you've watched the other ones. We also have our Avengers Doomsday video on who we think Sam is going to pick for his new Avengers team. That video was a lot of fun. We also have a bunch of trailer reactions that we've already done, weapons, Fantastic Four, I Know What You Did Last Summer. We got a little bit of everything, and we got a lot more to come. We also have our Thunderbolts coverage and our Daredevil Born Again coverage. And stay tuned. We will be continuing this with our final Mission Impossible video coming up when we watch. We have tickets for the IMAX Thursday preview.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we did get word that Tom Cruise will be in our city. We just don't know which theater. We have three IMAX movie theaters in our city, so we're hoping we get the one he goes to. Hoping. So stay tuned.
Thank you, Robert, as always. Appreciate you, and we appreciate y'all as well for your time. We'll see y'all on the next one.